Cut the feed. Shut it down. Now. Now. Envoy Halrin Dre slammed his palm against the command console, leaning forward as the oxygen levels behind him dipped into red. The heads-up display flickered, status indicators dropping line by line. Behind him, 4 human envoys coughed dryly into their sleeves. One dropped to his knees. The station's artificial gravity pulsed, then stabilized. No alarm sounded, no emergency protocols kicked in, just silence and diminishing air. Dre didn't panic, he wasn't built for that. He reached the comms panel, bypassed authentication, and opened a direct uplink to the Earth Directorate. This is Relay 9. Human delegation compromised. Life support disabled. Internal override detected. Source, Gervathi. Not accidental, this is deliberate. Transmission cut off halfway through. Power draw redirected. Dre looked up just once. At the Gervati liaison seated across the room. The alien didn't speak. He stood, turned his back, and walked out through the pressure lock without sealing it. As oxygen hissed out into vacuum, the last thing Halrin Dre saw was a truss beacon flickering once, then going dark. 3 days earlier, Earth's formal entry into the Accord of Seven had been greeted with cool acknowledgement. Not enthusiasm, but approval. After 2 decades of independent expansion, Earth had demonstrated interoperability with standard galactic trade protocols, deployed cross-species habitat modules, and maintained peaceful contact with 4 Accord members without incident. The Aerys belt, resource and politically unstable, was offered to Earth for joint stewardship. Gervati diplomats initiated the cooperation. Their proposal came clean: shared infrastructure, terraforming R&D, and open orbital access. It was a test. Earth accepted. Commander Staven Marr reviewed the agreement from a secure Directorate chamber, standing beside Director Varn Luthen. "Ellie picked us," Luthen said without turning. "They want to see if we'll follow structure or if we'll provoke something unstable." Marr nodded once. "Or they're waiting for a reason." Relay Station 9 was Earth's contribution. Built at the intersection of 3 trade routes, it was designed to host trilateral negotiations, mineral certification exchanges, and rotating security audits. Marr didn't attend the launch personally. He had reviewed the protocols and signed off the final checks. Dre led the delegation, veteran diplomat, former mediator during the Von Arkelthus corridor realignment. He trusted systems more than individuals. On arrival, he handed over full operational permissions to the Gervati control unit as a symbolic gesture of good faith. On day 2, the internal environmental logs showed minor irregularities. Microscopic dips in air pressure, recycled CO2 intervals stretching. The human engineering lead flagged the data and sent a soft alert back to Earth. Marr read it at 3:17 UTC. He highlighted it, annotated it, and moved it to a classified folder titled Shadow Protocols. He didn't inform the delegation. Day 3, 6:45 Aerys time. All access doors on Relay 9 sealed simultaneously. The internal report labeled it Maintenance Sync. The only human with override access was Dre. He tried his code, it failed. The Gervati control unit acknowledged receipt but issued no reversal. 20 seconds later, the oxygen reclaimers shut down. No countdown, no emergency sequence, just a subtle shift in the room. Barely noticeable at first. Within a minute, the air quality was compromised. Within 4, the human delegation began to lose consciousness. Earth received no distress call. The event was reported by an independent Karen freight hauler who noticed energy fluctuations as they passed the station. They opened a hailing channel. No reply. Heat signature from life forms had dropped to 0. By the time a Terran recon unit reached the relay site, it was inert, clean. No sign of external damage, no evidence of forced entry, no debris, just empty chairs, oxygenless halls, and a single data tag left in the main conference chamber. A non-encrypted log file bearing one Gervati authorization code. There were no further messages, no apology, no denial. Marr watched the footage twice. Then he shut the display. "I didn't use weapons," he said quietly. "No, Luthen answered. They used policy. What's the public message? Mar asked. Accidental failure. We mourn. We grieve. What's the real one? Luthen looked him in the eye. We've been measured and dismissed. The Directorate didn't mobilize ships. No retaliatory alerts were issued. A public broadcast expressed condolences and regret. Mar was granted operational oversight under Directive Slate 1. That classified order only had one purpose: activate protocol gatefold. Back at Relay 9, black-marked Terran technicians removed the trust beacon. Its power cell had been drained, not damaged. No mechanical failure, just manual shutdown. One of the engineers, a junior from Earth's diplomatic corps, stared at the dead console longer than he should have. I thought peace meant something, he muttered. His superior didn't respond. They were already preparing to lock the station in place. No salvage, no recovery. Relay 9 would remain in orbit, unpowered, unmarked. Director Luthen signed off the final closure directive. It read, Incident resolved. No future operations authorized. Facility frozen until further notice. Mar filed his first personal memo under gatefold. He opened the door by closing one. We will not walk through it. We will seal it behind them. On the Directorate display wall, Relay 9's coordinates were removed from the active star chart. The beacon's ID was purged from the system. The location still existed, but Earth no longer recognized it. Mar stood alone as the lights in the chamber dimmed. There was no ceremony, no eulogy, only data entries. And the flickering absence of a signal that once meant cooperation. Begin contingency modeling, he said to the onboard assistant. A soft ping acknowledged. Focus on non-kinetic outcomes, he added. Another ping. Start with trust. Give me a path they can't trace. I don't want echoes. I want disappearance. Commander Staven Mar stepped into the Black Ops chamber beneath Earth's South Atlantic command node, flanked by two internal protocol officers who said nothing. In front of him, Augur 9 was already running Silent Its interface, sealed from global command and linked only to gatefold. The room was stripped of comforts, no insignias, no signal repeaters. Only rows of nodes cooled by direct thermal piping and a ceiling that dripped from condensation every third interval. Director Luthen's face appeared on the central heads-up display. We're operating under Article 11K. You're no longer bound by standard counteraction laws. Do you acknowledge full black status? I do. Mar stepped forward, biometric strip confirming identity. Confirmed transfer of strategic authority. Done, Luthen nodded. Don't aim to scare them, remove their balance. Mar stood still. I'll do more than that. He turned to his unit leads. 3 men, 1 interface drone, 1 situational analyst. None saluted. No one used ranks. Mar pointed to the interface. Map every sector where Jorvathi logistical chains intersect with neutral Accord members. Build a model for minimum disruption with maximum misdirection. They moved instantly. Agent Lorex patched in pulse corridor data between Jorvathi deep space haulers and Council transport lanes. Specialist Cade monitored atmospheric relay signatures used in terraforming zones under Jorvathi watch. Operator Varnet prepared obfuscation modules to overwrite signatures and reroute scan patterns. The first phase was economic disorientation. Using trade pattern overlays, Mar's team rerouted minor shipments through illegal intermediary zones. Over 24 Jorvathi cargo vessels disappeared, not hijacked, not destroyed, simply never reported back. Their transponders reactivated weeks later in restricted areas bordering other Accord members, sowing doubt across alliance lines. Second phase, signal manipulation. Using variable band interference, Earth infiltrated Jorvathi communications across 3 low-orbit relays and injected synthetic routing loops. Entire fleet movements were logged at false locations. Their refueling schedules failed. Patrols missed their check-ins. By the time Jorvathi Internal Defense reviewed the data, their own command accused them of misinformation. Third phase, diplomatic disruption. Mar authorized Augur 9 to simulate speech patterns, decision logic, and phrasing used by Jorvati envoys during closed meetings. Deep mimic scripts were used to generate messages addressed to other Accord representatives. Messages containing minor insults, unspoken accusations, broken commitments. Nothing direct. Everything subtle. Within 27 days, Corran Sphere forces deployed a surveillance blockade on Jorvati border hubs. Venari traders pulled all mining contracts. Council warships adjusted patrol routes, citing alignment inconsistencies. Earth said nothing. Luthen checked in once a week. Status? Mar never looked at the camera. We haven't struck once. They're already falling. Outside the command room, a junior systems analyst leaned into Varnet's console. You think they'll trace this back to us? No, he replied without looking up. They won't believe we have the reach. The Directorate issued no statements. Earth's public news channels continued reporting on memorials for Relay 9. Civilian morale remained stable. Behind the scenes, Mar moved into Phase 4. Network fracture. Artificial inconsistencies were introduced into archival data. Species records were subtly misfiled. Historical timestamps were shifted. Medical registries lagged behind updates. The Jorvati data cloud, once regarded as the Accord's most stable structure, began producing errors, not visible, not dramatic, but enough to question their systems. Envoy terminals began showing conflicts in treaty documentation. Fleet formations arrived at locations 3 hours late. A planetary defense request from a colony was never delivered to Central Command. No explosions, no broadcasts, just error after error after error, each one small enough to blame on incompetence, but frequent enough to suggest sabotage. The Jorvati requested a review panel with Accord oversight. Earth declined to attend. The excuse, ongoing grief review, delegation unavailable. No explanation given. Operator Lorix handed Mar a results log showing a 73% increase in intra-Accord tensions, traced directly to Jorvati procedural irregularities. They're coming apart, she said. Not yet, Mar answered. They're doubting. I want them doubting us next. He walked into Augur 9's control bay and input a new instruction tree. Model 5 divergent response profiles for Earth. Some aggressive, others passive, all plausible. Each would be seeded into secondary council channels using previously observed leak paths. Why not just break them openly? Lorix asked later, arms crossed as the outputs rolled in. Because then they'll fight like they have something left to lose, Mar replied. I don't want resistance. I want collapse. Earth's intelligence division launched the Echo Gate initiative, short-form bursts of conflicting information designed to trigger response delays inside Jorvati command hierarchies. Half of the missives came from planted intermediaries posing as rogue Accord insiders. The other half appeared to originate from Jorvati factions themselves. By the end of the second month, 3 of their regional governors had been recalled. Their war planning bureau had lost 2/3 of its route control authority. One mining outpost on Vora 9 declared non-alignment and pulled its defense perimeter offline, believing Earth had been betrayed and quietly agreeing to disengage from all Accord obligation. Inside the gatefold chamber, the air felt heavier, not from heat, but from effort. The silence that followed each successful infiltration wasn't celebration. It was the weight of what they were doing. Director Luthen's face returned to the display one final time. They've demanded an investigation into why we refused to attend the tribunal. You want to respond? No, Mar said. They know why. Let them pretend they don't. Luthen didn't speak again. He just nodded. Once. At 4:30 local command time, Mar filed an internal update to all Earth-based Accord monitors. Protocol gatefold remains in effect. Direct conflict unnecessary. Structural collapse in motion. Maintain silent operations. Await directive escalation approval. Mar didn't leave the chamber. He didn't speak to media. Didn't grant interviews. He sat beside the central console and watched as the model updated in real time. An entire interstellar faction slowly turning inward. Suspicious. Directionless. unstable. His final words that night, spoken only to himself, were short. Let's see what breaks next. People forge new treaties without us, that is a declaration. High Chancellor Drevik of the Koran Sphere dragged his clawed finger across the room's projection wall, illuminating overlapping sectors now claimed jointly by the Venari Assembly and the Jorvati territories. Minister Volnai adjusted the collar of his respiration frame and narrowed his eyes at the data stream. They rerouted 3 trade lanes overnight and issued retroactive permissions. No vote, no warning. They expect us to approve it post facto? No. Drevik stepped back, voice clipped. They expect us to fold. The room darkened as external interference flickered across the heads-up display. Volnai turned to the aide seated by the subconsole. Clean that feed. Now. The aide, younger and unfamiliar with high-level conflicts, hesitated. It's not inbound jamming, these are system errors. Internal, not external. Drevik's gaze shifted toward him. How many sectors show this pattern? 24, possibly more. I've sent requests to our Northern Council. They're not responding. Volnai stood. That's not a delay, that's containment. In the hallway outside the command chamber, 2 technicians whispered behind a power core conduit. We received those same route maps last cycle, direct from Jorvati Command, with forged sphere approval. Really must have assumed we'd stay quiet. The younger tech didn't answer. He removed his crest badge and dropped it onto the floor without bending to retrieve it. Across the spiral colonies of the Koran Venari interface zone, enforcement skiffs hovered above local transports, scanning registry signals. One after another, the system flagged inconsistencies. Shipping logs were duplicated. Ownership rights had missing timestamps. Each checkpoint operator confirmed the same anomaly, data corruption, but only on packets passing through Jorvati space. In Venari District 12, Regional Arbiter Callis met with her intelligence attaché inside a reinforced tower chamber. She tapped her fingers along the stone-grained table, irritation rising with each unacknowledged signal sent to Jorvati consulates. They befroze our diplomatic bridge, claimed infrastructure rerouting, yet their fleets are moving through our lines as if ownership has shifted. Her attaché brought up a censor sheet. 7 transit violations. All logged with approval codes signed under your name. Callis froze. I never authorized those. I know. But to the network, they're real. Data nodes across the Accord began to fracture under weightless suspicion. Outposts aligned with the Koran Sphere received denials from Venari Command. Meanwhile, independent colonies operating under shared charters were seized by Jorvati fleets, claiming breach of trust clauses, even when no such clauses were embedded. In a buried node beneath Treaty Spire 7, a low-ranking analyst named Thuran isolated a trail of digital signature drift. These aren't just transmission anomalies, he said aloud to no one. He opened an encrypted packet disguised as an infrastructure update. Within seconds, Augur 9's hidden logic burst through. One layer at a time, modeling behavior patterns, speech inflections, decision-making templates. Theron blinked. We're not intercepting Jorvati lies. We're absorbing engineered mimicry. He copied the chain and tried to upload a warning to Council servers. A red lockout screen greeted him, followed by a system flag. Protocol loop detected. His monitor dimmed. A file labeled Restructure Initiative replaced his workstation entirely. The wall behind him displayed a new flag, Earth's. Subtle, barely visible, but it was there. Back in Jorvati Command, panic was spreading. Fleet Lord Ralkin demanded answers during a private session with his Warcast ministers. We sent 3 encrypted communiques to the Venari yesterday. Not one responded. 2 colonies severed relay access this morning. The Arnis border pack is void. High Advisor Kelthar narrowed his eyes at the static-filled report. We didn't breach the pact. Someone altered the message. Young coordinator leaned forward from the rear of the room. Advisor, one of the intercepted messages from Earth suggested we were planning preemptive fleet strikes. That message wasn't ours. No, sir, but it was voiced in your cadence. Word for word. In the outer rim world of Zeros Vaughn, A protest turned violent after a neutral Accord delegate shared a fabricated order from Jorvati leadership authorizing military occupation. Local defense towers fired into the sky in a desperate show of loyalty. Loyalty to no one. There was no confirmation, just panic. Then gunfire. On the orbital station orbiting the sphere's fifth colony, Corran officers debated immediate escalation. "Enough ambiguity," said Captain Rockstill. "We respond now. Trade interference is one thing. Forced internal collapse is another." "No order has been given," his comms officer warned. "We're past orders." Beneath Council Hall 6, 3 Accord mediators sat in a circular chamber, not one of them trusting the others. "The Jorvathi were once the model of consistency," one murmured. "They're now a model of revision. There's no war yet. There's no peace either." They stared at a live conflict map. Squares now replaced with shifting overlays, every color blurred at the borders. Trust, once absolute, was now mathematical probability. A new incident report blinked onto the top of the Council's heads-up feed. A storage hub had been wiped from registry memory. Not attacked, not stolen, just missing. It had existed yesterday. Jorvathi Prime Consul Rudek Varen reviewed that file personally. He didn't blink, didn't speak. The room around him quieted. Ministers adjusted in their chairs. No one knew what to say. Finally, Varen spoke. "They're not challenging us with fleets, they're replacing our place in the structure, without ever showing their hands." One of his aides leaned forward. "Do we respond? To what? Shadows?" No answer came. Only another report. Then, another. Then a flashing note that one of their outer systems had realigned trade with Earth directly, without informing Central Command. A diplomat from the Veneri sector stood before her own delegation in silence before shredding a signed treaty across the floor. "This is ink on fraud," she said flatly. From the back someone whispered, "What if Earth was never grieving?" The corridor lights dimmed across multiple sectors. It wasn't sabotage, it was resource shift. Power rerouted not through damage, but through doubt. Across fractured command tables and splintering diplomatic chains, the message had been seeded by someone who never spoke it aloud. You don't need to fire a weapon to break a world. You just need to make it think it's alone. Form up in combat layers, lock payload rails, full override if we see a human signature. Fleet Marshal Vardek's voice ran across all 76 ships in a staggered burst, relayed through relay bounce protocol to avoid signal lag. The Jorvati Armada advanced past the outer curve of the Aerys belt, a swirl of pale rock clusters and industrial satellites once co-managed by Earth. It was a coordinated occupation. It was supposed to be clean. Commander Elric aboard the forward cruiser Trosk Vorn squinted at the primary heads-up display. "No active beacon, no entry acknowledgement. Traffic control is off-grid." The junior officer beside him studied the telemetry. "Beacon core reads operational. Power loop intact, but the signal isn't broadcasting. They didn't shut it down. They never powered it back up." The Trosk Vorn reached orbital lock near Station Theta 4. Docking clamps remained extended. Automated clearance protocols blinked yellow. There were no crew responses, no refueling requests, no response queues. The structure drifted, intact and powered, yet completely unclaimed. "Dispatch breach team," Elric ordered. "I want visuals from every deck." 7 black-armored specialists crossed the docking bridge with magnetized boots. Their headgear flashed synchronized updates. Atmospheric conditions inside, nominal. Gravity generators, stable. Movement detected, none. Interior systems maintained by autonomous regulators still cycled air, cooled cores, and kept corridor lights humming, but the human personnel were gone. One trooper paused beside the central control ring. He held up a hand, drawing the team's attention to a station log embedded inside the terminal. The last recorded maintenance entry was dated 4 Earth Standard months earlier. No logs after that. "Fleet Marshal," the trooper transmitted. "They didn't evacuate under pressure. The station was vacated on schedule, no forced decompression, no damage signatures. They walked out." Vardek exhaled sharply. They left a functioning fortress open? They didn't forget anything. They wanted us to come. Half a sector away, Cruiser Group 12 moved into geosync with Refinery Node R27. Aboard the Darvok Thul, Operations Officer Norak monitored structural anomalies. The facility looked operational until the lead shuttle extended its grappler arms. On contact, every internal pressure seal on the station reversed. Hull plates folded inward, artificial gravity wells spiked, yanking the grappler unit sideways into the refinery's maintenance ring. 5 crew members were lost before emergency tow lines snapped the craft back into the cruiser's underbay. The explosion wasn't visual. It was gravitational. Sublayer distortion ruptured the entire anchor point, compressing the refinery's core into its own power lattice. No enemy fire, no retaliation, just collapse. Planned. Engineered. Contact loss on Node R27. Damage not external. Structural inversion event confirmed. That report logged into the fleet's primary operations thread, repeated in translated versions across every cruiser. Within the hour, 17 ships registered structural anomalies as they docked with remaining Earth-built installations. Internal doors wouldn't open. Archive nodes were inaccessible. Heating systems looped artificially high, forcing withdrawal. One cruiser attempted to bypass station software only to trigger a reversion charge embedded in the data port. The explosion severed comms on 3 decks. He didn't leave defenses. They left weapons disguised as infrastructure, a Koran tactician muttered to her captain. Farther inward, the flagship Vorik Harn reached Command Relay Zato Z1. It had been the crown jewel of the belt. A diplomatic terminal for multi-species oversight, complete with trilong conversion walls and hydrohull concourses. Now, it floated. Active power readings, 0. Structural integrity, stable. All entries locked from the inside. Marshal Vardek approved breach. The lead team entered through maintenance access on the lower deck. Inside, they found no bodies, no wreckage, just chairs aligned around an empty council table. The head seat, where Earth's envoy once sat, had been removed entirely. In its place, a single data drive, unshielded and untouched. "What's on it?" Vardek asked. The technician patched it through a closed node, watching as the laser feed reader displayed one phrase. "You watched them die, now watch everything else decay." The message contained no coordinates, no demands. Just that line. 3 hours into the operation, panic spread. Multiple vessels requested withdrawal authorization. Fleet Command denied the request. The mission would proceed. The Jurosk reported major hull cracking while tethered to a decoy relay hub. The dock seals were fused. External pressure registered normal, but every tool failed to separate the craft from the installation. When auxiliary thrusters attempted detachment, the relay's core vented controlled plasma, blinding 2 service teams. Engineer records later confirmed the vent was not defective. It had been reprogrammed to open only during unplanned separation. "We're walking through a theater rigged to burn the audience," muttered Commander Elric, staring at a frozen docking arm still extended to nowhere. "And we bought the front row seats." Meanwhile, analytics units aboard the Jorvati cruisers observed commonalities in Earth's withdrawal strategy. Every station was stripped of logs past a specific date. Every power cell was calibrated to run self-sufficiently for precisely 4 months. After that, system degradation, trap triggers, data erosion. This wasn't retreat, it was architecture. The infrastructure itself was turned into a weapon. Commander Varkel of the Drossmaven reported a new anomaly. Comms interference bouncing off derelict beacon satellites. When mapped, the echoes formed a visual grid, one outlining Jorvati fleet positions in real time. Earth had abandoned the region but still monitored it, using the fleet's own position data reflected against station cores. The implication was clear. Earth didn't leave because it lost, it left to watch. Fleet Marshal Vardek summoned a secure conference of his battle group leads. The room dimmed. Heads-up displays mapped every station visited so far, overlaid with red-tagged anomalies. "We underestimated their timing," he admitted. This wasn't a panic exit. This was a long-game reconfiguration. They studied how we enter, how we claim, how we deploy. Then they built this entire region as a net. Maybe we'd come, one officer said flatly. Ebi made coming the trap, another added. Vardic stepped forward, pointing to a still image from refinery node R27. An empty corridor with a clean walkway, no lights, and a locked room labeled, "Do not restore." The crew that tried to access it had never returned. "Start pulling back," he ordered. "We don't own this space. We just walked into a story they wrote without us." One of the officers paused. "And what if this isn't the end of the story?" Vardic didn't answer. He turned to the console and issued a coded command. "Initiate full-spectrum sweep. Locate any trace of active Terran presence. If they're here, we find them. If they're not, we find what they left behind. Deploy the schema. Let them argue with the version of themselves we built." Commander Stavin Mar didn't look up as the room dimmed around him. Augur 9's interface slid into motion, layers of conversation trees unfolding in real time across the main heads-up array. Each node showed a different face. Council figures from the Accord, Veneri, Corin, Talresh, even former human liaisons. None of them real. All of them statistically perfect. Vanet leaned over his terminal, modeling their phrasing down to inflection. Every phrase has a trigger, built in. Passive accusations. Subtle phrasing. Subtle turns. Enough to burn trust without direct blame. Loop 2, delay 6 minutes between species relays, Mar replied. Sync with known time lag between Corin and Venari courier packet channels. I want the desync to feel accidental. On screen, the simulation played out like theater. Augur 9 feeding arguments into private channels. Messages masked in official stamps, seeded with realistic errors. A Venari minister questioned Jorvathi loyalty in clipped syntax. A Corin admiral offered military cooperation to Earth, based on forged logs. Meanwhile, Accord broadcast cores picked up the transmissions, not from Earth, from Accord relay points themselves, hijacked but not traceably so. Lorix brought up the confirmation scan. 1/3 of outer sector diplomatic links have already begun autonomous validation loops. They'll try to cross-section. They'll fail. They're used to treaties, Mar said, tapping in a second prompt. We've given them transcripts of betrayal. The trick isn't convincing them it's real. It's making them doubt their own logs. Other law, across Corin Sector 6, a regional warship captain replayed a short burst message. The content was clear. Venari Council had approved economic sanctions against the sphere, citing aggressive violations of joint expansion law. The captain flagged it as suspicious, until the message appeared in 2 other independent feeds. Who leaked it? His second-in-command asked. No idea. It has all the markers. Source keys check out. Should we forward it up the chain? He stared at the screen. There's no chain left. Aboard the Falthir Kesh, a Venari escort vessel, the crew reviewed an encrypted command string issued by the Jorvathi Central Block. It ordered full recall of any non-Jorvathi ships from the shared manufacturing hub in Orbit 19. That recall had never been authorized. The message had no context, just a command. The ship complied, they retracted. The departure looked hostile. The Jorvathi stationed at the hub raised shields. Arguments flared. Logs were demanded. None could be authenticated. By the time a reply arrived, 2 defense platforms had fired warning shots. Each convinced the other had breached terms of a now fractured agreement. Back inside Earth's subterranean command node, Varnet projected a cluster map of Augur 9's behavioral reach. 80% convergence. 10 planetary governors issued internal review orders. They think their own governments failed. Mar nodded. Send the next wave. Phase 2 of Operation Backtrack was initiated. This time, Augur 9 went further, fabricating entire meeting sequences using behavior matrices gathered from decades of Accord archives. Ministers debated false policies. Military leaders made aggressive declarations that had never occurred. One stream showed a Jorvathi dignitary admitting, unwillingly, that the Relay 9 incident had been a controlled cull. That recording had no basis in fact. It never happened. But it matched the tone, vocabulary, and demeanor expected from that specific official. The council received it. Layered corruption is setting in, Lorex reported. Intercouncil requests have stalled. Nobody knows which messages are real. On board the Coran command cruiser Velka Ray, multiple bridges came to a halt when two opposing orders arrived simultaneously, both signed by the same admiral. One demanded readiness drills against Jorvati incursions, the other condemned any mobilization as a breach of neutrality. Neither was traceable to a common spoof node. Both had internal markers verified against archived identity stamps. Admiral Rivik, unable to verify either order's authenticity, withdrew all ships to defensive orbit and severed non-emergency communications. "Calm silence?" his aide asked. "No, not silence," Rivik replied, correcting him. "Containment." The effect snowballed. 3 Jorvati patrol groups turned their weapons inward after a decoded message from one fleet indicated that the others were defectors. They weren't. The communication had been generated 5 hours earlier using Augur 9's inference engine, seeded through a fake intermediary, a dormant mining relay, reactivated just long enough to transmit the betrayal warning. No human ship fired a shot, but 8 Jorvathi ships were destroyed in the crossfire. Their black box logs showed identical message paths, but no point of origin. "They're devouring themselves," Varnet observed. "Our words, their weapons." "Just the beginning," Mar muttered. "The more they react, the more we feed the loop." Barnett paused. "And when there's no trust left?" Mar didn't answer directly. He keyed in the command for escalation triggers and handed off a short sequence to Lorex. "Distribute these to 6 accord-length territories. Let them discover forged military pacts signed between Jorvati and Earth. Date them a cycle ago. It'll fracture the outer alignments." The final phase of Back began as regional data streams independent from council centers began surfacing archived files. These weren't encrypted, they were open, planted as recovered leaks. The files included diplomatic notes referencing a Jorvathi betrayal that, while fabricated, lined up perfectly with previous broadcast data tampered by Augur 9. One diplomat panicked, publicly citing the breach. The broadcast spread. Then it looped. Fleet Marshal Vardek, still in orbit over the Aerys belt, intercepted the stream aboard the Vorik. "This footage, when was it recorded?" His comms officer scanned it. "Timestamp places it 10 cycles before Relay 9. That's impossible. I was present at that session. It never happened." "Then, someone made it happen." Vardek stared at the feed. In it, his counterpart from the Accord Chamber accused the Jorvati of covert genocide. The voice, the words, the manner, perfect match. But false. Constructed. And yet, it aligned with the events they'd just witnessed in the belt. He turned to his second. "Issue a fleet-wide lockdown. No transmissions in or out. We've been compromised." "By Earth." "Not Earth." Vardek replied. "By ourselves. Execute the veil, all sectors, no delays." Commander Mar's tone didn't waver, his posture didn't shift. He simply watched as Augur 9 began the cascade across Earth's deep black terminals, one by one, operation timers synchronized to orbital windows. The room dimmed under red phase light, walls displaying kinetic range arcs and orbital overlays of targeted Jorvathi heritage zones. Aboard the Inclinus, Earth's long-range kinetic platform stationed outside declared space. Operator Dresk keyed in the first coordinates. Library dome and sector Harneth, archive signature confirmed. Core matched. He paused. Authorization code? Mar leaned forward. 1, 1, 1. On the heads-up panel, a countdown appeared. 0 o'clock and 10 seconds. 0 o'clock and 9 seconds. 0 o'clock and 8 seconds. They didn't call it a weapon. It was listed in Directorate logs as a cultural retraction tool. There were no payloads designed to incinerate cities. No strikes aimed at life. The kinetic rounds had a singular purpose: data destruction. Each warhead was packed with inertial scramblers, not explosives. Their speed, not their mass, would erase. The projectile hit the library dome at 0:00 and 0 seconds. No shockwave. No debris cloud. The entire structure folded inward, books and bioservers crumpling into fine ash before structural collapse buried the vaults under 14 layers of compression-resistant alloyed dust. Target neutralized, Dresk reported. Next, Mar ordered. In orbit line Delta, the Draylen Verge closed position over the Jorvathi genetic assembly. The vault surface glowed faintly with refracted solar alignment, its shielding composed of layered ceramic fiber rings, once impervious to plasma-based strikes, but it had no defense against kinetic erasure. The incoming round didn't break the vault, it shattered the anchors beneath it, sending the entire facility into destabilized spin. Backup power systems collapsed, temperature regulation failed, the cryogenic matrix melted. Every genome archive, every preserved Jorvathi strain dating back 11,000 cycles, was gone within 6 minutes. Barnett, watching from the data feed hub, adjusted frequency intake filters. Signal from the southern hemisphere's offline, no alert issued. Power drain confirms destruction. They're not even aware yet. On the Jorvathi home world, citizens looked to the skies as a soft flicker crossed the upper atmosphere. Not blinding, not loud, but real. One historical spire, long believed indestructible, simply cracked in the middle, splitting open, revealing data cores that disintegrated before any recovery crew arrived. "This isn't conquest," whispered one observer. "They're unmaking who we are." Inside Earth's command vault, Augur 9 auto-deployed message replicators embedded inside intercepted diplomatic files. Each copy sent to former allies included a casualty report, not of deaths, but of memory losses. The list grew rapidly. Education Ministry, gone. Seed Bank, Delta, neutralized. Astral Cartographic Registry. Lorix highlighted one sequence. "We're getting localized conflicts. The Venari are blaming the Corin for not intercepting these events. It won't realize it's coordinated until nothing's left to coordinate," Mar responded. The Saravent, positioned near the old Jorvathi Academy of History, fired a zero-sound inertial spike. On contact, the support beams disintegrated. Energy fields reversed polarity. Servers flared white and died. Inside, copper-stamped treaty tablets, kept for ceremony, not function, fell into pieces. Mar checked the command slate. Status on Beacon Core 7B. Revised trajectory confirms impact window in 9 minutes. Core holds every founding broadcast Jorvathi ever made to the Accord. Good. They won't just lose their past. They'll lose the memory of it. In a council chamber deep beneath the capital, Jorvathi officials screamed into fractured comm lines. Orders contradicted themselves. Defense systems didn't activate. Alerts showed incoming objects too small to trigger military response, too fast for conventional interception. One counselor pounded his desk. "This is deletion, this is extinction without blood." Another replied, dazed. "They're taking everything but our corpses." Above the primary city dome, the Monument of Unity, built after the First Accord Conference, stood untouched. Mar had left it for last, not because of sentiment, but because it marked the culmination of the Jorvathi myth. They believed they built peace. Earth never did. Dresk waited for final clearance. "Do we erase it?" Mare didn't hesitate. "We don't leave symbols." The kinetic rod arrived from orbit 11 seconds later. It struck the statue's foundation at a slant, toppling the figure without explosion. The structure tilted, sheared mid-gesture, and crashed through the Memorial Plaza tiles below. No civilians were present. The district had been cleared 2 days earlier by unexplained blackout orders. Every impact was logged by Augur 9. Every log was encrypted. No glory report would be issued. No monument would be built. This wasn't war. It was correction. Lawrence stood beside Mar at the final terminal. "You ever think they'd go this far?" Ellie forced the answer, not the question. Mar didn't look at her. That was already answered at Relay 9. Final strike, Initiated at Beacon Vault 1A. The oldest remaining planetary data core in Jorvathi custody. The round made no sound, caused no fire, and left no crater. The vault collapsed inward like paper soaked in gravity. Transmission reports blinked out. The entire site ceased to register. Dresk logged the completion. Directive Veal achieved, total of 36 strikes, civilian casualty estimate, 0. Knowledge casualty, total. R stepped away from the console. The chamber stayed dim, sensors blinking in steady blue. No one spoke. There was no celebration, no approval rating to watch. Nothing had been gained. Something had been removed. Stand down the kinetic systems, Mar instructed. Reassign fleet support to orbit watch. If they rebuild, we'll know. What if they tried to document again? Vernet asked from across the room. Mar closed the terminal. They'll have nothing to compare it to. They've opened a line. Encrypted. Broadcast origin verified. Last surviving colony. Lorex kept her eyes locked on the incoming request blinking along the side of the heads-up feed. It pulsed in slow, rhythmic intervals. Nothing aggressive, no commands, only a title. Petition for retention. Mar didn't speak right away. He stared at the stream as it resolved into a live channel, showing the interior of an underground Jorvathi council room. Cracks ran across the stone walls, and several luminaries flickered under low power. The chairs were mismatched, the robes worn unevenly. They weren't performing. They had nothing left to perform for. High Advisor Tharn Vel sat at the center. His voice held no sharpness. We are not issuing defiance, not issuing challenge. We ask only this. Leave us something. One monument, one story, one name. His hands trembled as he spoke, one finger sliding across a degraded console that still bore a worn accord sigil. You've taken our scripts, our history, our records. What remains is biological impulse. We will survive, but we will not exist. Across the Earth Directorate response chamber, the transmission played unedited. Mar watched. No advisors interjected. No data logs blinked for review. No statistics ran beside the feed. Just a face, speaking from the last thread of culture. Bell inhaled. We broke the treaty. We acknowledge it. But law was written for the future, not annihilation. Augur 9 had already mapped Vel's inflection arc, projected his stress tones. Mar didn't care. He raised his hand slightly. Let the broadcast run. I want them to finish. The Jorvathi speaker leaned forward. Your vengeance has no narrative, no threat, no demand. There's nothing to resist, because there is nothing left to answer. We've lost, fully. Do not confuse that with a plea for reversal, only a request for memory. Oryx turned slightly. How do you want to respond? Mar walked to the console and keyed a direct reply line. The heads-up feed split. Earth on one side, the degraded Jorvathi command room on the other. He spoke without raising his voice. You forfeited continuity when you initiated betrayal under diplomatic protection. We are not taking revenge. We are removing the possibility of repetition. Bell didn't flinch. So, it's not punishment. It's deletion. No, Mar replied, it's consequence. The connection didn't close. There was a pause. One Jorvathi beside Vel, younger, stepped forward. His voice edged with desperation. We can rebuild under review, share oversight, compromise. He fumbled for language. We will never... Stop, Vel said, cutting him off with a slight motion. They are not seeking terms, only finality. Mar nodded once. You understand. Vel pressed his thumb to a console pad. Behind him, a data seal on the wall dissolved, exposing the final charter of the Jorvathi Grand Council. He rose, approached it, and placed both hands on the document's edge. No more council, no more decisions. Our structure ends here. The camera shifted as Vel stepped back. Flames trickled from the document's frame, eating the charter in programmed increments. Ash gathered on the tile. One counselor removed his insignia and placed it on the floor. "We'll mark no calendar," Vel said. Transmission time-stamped and filed. Augur 9 archived the file under Treaty Termination, Class 0. Earth's command chamber didn't react. No alerts sounded, no feedback requested. Mars stood motionless. Lorix broke the silence. "Do we shut the channel?" "No," Mar answered. "Let them close it." Minutes passed. No words followed. Finally, the Jorvathi feed dimmed, resolution degrading as their power systems overloaded from the energy drain. The image fractured into static, then stopped transmitting. Lorix watched her console. "They're offline. Permanently." From the deep files, Operator Varnet cross-checked regional energy traces. Final emission logged. Colony beacon terminated manually. Mar walked over to the global signal relay. He keyed a localized directive. "Disengage psychological observation. Region requires no further monitoring." On the directorate overlay, the Jorvathi quadrant now showed black-tinted star fields, each a gap in previously charted systems. No data nodes, no active signals, no relay pings. "Reclassify the territory," Mar said. "To what designation?" Varnet asked. Mar didn't hesitate. "Unclaimed." At the far edge of Earth's orbital defense array, the final listening post connected to that region ran a final sweep. There was no cry for help, no hidden fleet, no survivor packet. Just ambient drift, residual decay, and a single encrypted signal left on a loop. It wasn't a warning. It wasn't an appeal. It was a name, written in a language no one would ever translate again. "Seal it. No override, no return clause." Mar didn't lift his eyes as Lorix keyed the final gatefold closure code. The vault's logic stream froze mid-second and then collapsed in on itself. No files deleted, all access revoked. A classified framework embedded in Earth's defense doctrine was now locked beneath 14 levels of isolation. On the main heads-up display, the former Jorvathi territory pulsed with new designation markers. Each system once indexed now bore a single code. 3 versus 3. A and unviable. No threat tags, no strategic interest labels. Earth had reclassified the region not as hostile, but as irrelevant. Lorix stood beside him. "No one's disputing it." "They won't," Mar answered. "They can't respond to what's no longer defined." Across multiple Accord remnants, heads of surviving factions attempted emergency alignment sessions. The Corran's border watch was in disarray. The Vinari had shut down diplomatic bandwidth. The Talresh had defaulted to planetary governance, abandoning interstellar commitments altogether. No new galactic framework emerged. Earth didn't step in. From orbit, Earth's buoy system expanded. Each uncharted entry point now displayed a rotating signal band tagged in multiple dialects. "Entry not recommended. Cultural stability risk. No defenses. Just a message." That was enough. Inside the Earth Directorate chamber, Luthen reviewed the final timeline summary Mar had submitted. Relay 9 confirmed. Compromised. Operation Gatefold authorized. Jorvathi Council disbanded by internal declaration. Cultural erasure completed via Directive Veil. Region status excluded from record. He closed the file and looked at the man across from him. "You understand there'll be no recognition, no medal. This won't be added to command records." Mar gave a slight nod. "It shouldn't be. You also understand what it means for Earth's position. We aren't feared because we retaliated. We're avoided because we erased." "That's not power," Mar said. "It's memory management." Luthen leaned back. "Some in the Accord call it genocide." "There's no one left to dispute them," Mar replied. Far off, on the edge of human-aligned trade routes, station AI handlers began rewriting navigation charts. Former Jorvathi transit lanes now displayed black zones. No refueling rights, no landing codes. All mentions of previous inhabitants removed, redacted by New Earth standards. Explorers would see the voids and assume they were anomalies, not remnants. Operator Varnet uploaded the last update into the public Astro Index. 73 stars now relisted as unoccupied. Official exploration suspension has been enacted. In the archiving sector, 3 technicians worked through the last set of diplomatic collapse reports. One of them, younger than the rest, held up a data drive. Do we preserve this? The senior analyst shook his head. If it references Gervati, burn it. They're not flagged anymore. Mar exited the central command chamber for the final time. No escort. No directive awaiting him. His role, outlined in Gatefold's logic tree, terminated alongside the operation. The path ahead was his to define, but not publicly. He stopped at the classified access chamber on sublevel 19. No one had entered it since the start of Directive V. Veal. He opened the secure terminal, logged his final action, and recorded the memo that would never be broadcast. You cannot erase betrayal, you can only erase its source. We were never aiming to rule. We were forced to rewrite the conditions for survival. No flags, no borders, no names, just the understanding. If trust is violated at scale, we won't protest, we'll forget you. He encoded the statement and embedded it in Earth's core archive under Strategic Doctrines, closed Category 4, no further edits allowed. As he left the chamber, he crossed paths with an officer preparing for deployment. The young man looked up, unsure whether to address him. Mar paused. If anyone asks what happened out there, what do you say? The officer considered. There was a region we once shared. It's not ours. It's not theirs. It's nothing now. Mar's expression didn't change. That's the right answer. By the following cycle, Earth's media channels quietly phased out all references to the Accord. Diplomatic envoys returned from postings early. Trade alliances dissolved without announcement. Earth didn't replace them. No fleets mobilized. No warnings were issued. The human fleet remained docked, intact, untested, unread. Across the stars, systems once mapped with glowing flags now showed empty grid points. Inquiry packets returned no data. Cartographers marked the charts with unresolved. It wasn't war that changed the order. It was erasure. No species challenged the new arrangement. Not because they feared weapons, but because they saw what happened to a name removed from history. Not lost. Not remembered. Just undone. One listening post on Earth's furthest satellite recorded an unusual low-band pulse weeks later. It wasn't tagged as hostile. The encryption matched old Accord patterns, but the syntax was fragmented. The AI reviewed it and flagged it. Cultural Remnant Inquiry. Does anyone remember VEL? The system logged it. No human responded. The message was automatically filtered under non-essential echo and stored for deletion. On Earth, Mar stood in a coastal station overlooking a reclaimed water farm. His badge had been dissolved. No public record tied him to Gatefold. A civilian researcher passed by, recognizing his face only from an old operations photo. You served? Cleaned something that needed to be cleaned, Mar said. Was it worth it, the researcher asked. Mar looked out at the horizon. No more treaties signed in panic. No more trust used as bait. That's what remains. The waves moved below, steady and unconcerned. No headlines covered what was done. No ceremony marked the closure. Earth had not risen in conquest. It had ended a question with deletion. And somewhere beyond human space, the last coordinates once tied to Jorvati heritage dimmed from stellar charts. There were no survivors. There were no victors. Only one memory left. Earth had not retaliated. Earth had erased.